As-salamu
alaikum.
alaikum. Tate family can hear you.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Okay, mashallah. I just want to share with you that today is the 18th of Sha'aban, and I pray that all of you are imbibing upon the blessings of this forgotten month and fasting as much as possible and praying as much as possible and making as much dhikr as possible. Inshallah, we are 11 days before the holy month of Ramadan. We have one more class before Ramadan begins on Thursday evening, April the 23rd. And I want to let all of you know that beginning April the 23rd, and I need some feedback on this, since there will not be any Taraweeh in the masjid, jointly, I'm going to recommend that all of you do Taraweeh online. That's T-A-R-A-W-E-E-H, and then online.com. It's a day-by-day completion with English subtitles. And that's going to take you about an hour and 40 minutes every night. So what I'm offering, and I would love to get feedback from you, is that say 8:45 or 8:50, 8:55 every night, I will do a short devotion before the Isha prayer. So for those of you who know, and for those of you who don't, I will explain later after the actual presentation today. You would break your fast. Let's say on the first night at 7:59, at about 8:45, I would give a small halaqah, and then at 9:20, everybody would join the Taraweeh online, and that is a day-by-day full 20 rakahs with a beautiful recitation. So hopefully if you guys will let me know if you'd like me to say start at 8:45 the first week of Ramadan, 8:50 the second week, 8:55. You know, every 5 days we can move it up 5 minutes to accommodate the lunar calendar. I would be grateful for some feedback on that. Before I actually start the class today, I would like to remind you of a few things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ultimate purpose for us is found in chapter 51 of the Holy Quran and verse 56. I have created jinns and mankind for the one ultimate purpose, that they fulfill ibadah, worship to me. And so this is the unequivocal purpose of human beings on this earth. And the whole idea of the month of Ramadan is that we are worshiping and abstaining from worldly things. And I will share one more verse, actually several verses, but one more reference from chapter 91, verses 7 through 10. Consider the human self a personality and how it is formed in accordance with what it is meant to be, what it was made for, and how it is imbued with moral failings, as well as with consciousness of God. To a happy state shall indeed attain he or she who causes this self to grow in purity, and truly lost is he or she who buries it in darkness. So I want to remind you that the purpose of this month is to gain God consciousness, to purify ourselves, and these are some of the promises of Allah. That group of verses finishes by saying, by the soul, or another translation, sorry, by the soul in the proportion and order given to it and its enlightenment as to its rights and wrongs. Truly he or she succeeds, it purifies it, and he or she fails, that corrupts it. So inshallah, as you are in this month of Sha'aban, you are purifying your soul, and inshallah, you will be purifying your soul more in the month of Ramadan. So in alhamdulillah ta'ala, نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all the praise is due to Allah. We praise Allah. We seek Allah's assistance and forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil within ourselves. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, no one can misguide them. Whoever Allah does not guide, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. He is alone with no partner, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final messenger. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. O you who believe, fear Allah by doing all that Allah has ordered you to do and by abstaining from all that Allah has prohibited you. Fear Allah as Allah alone should be feared, and die not, except as Muslims in complete submission to Allah. Ya ayyuhan nas taqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahidatan wa khalaqa minha wa batha minhumma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. واتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحم إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Indeed, O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord who created you from a single soul, and from that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created its mate, and from them both dispersed many men and women, and fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and do not cut off the relationships of kinship. Surely Allah is ever a watcher over you. Amma ba'd. So hopefully you can see the screen, inshallah, and we will start with Surah 2, verse 185. And this is really the mission statement, the understanding about this holy month that we will soon be entering. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 185, it was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was first bestowed from on high as a guidance unto mankind and as self-evident proof of that guidance, and as a standard by which to discern the true from the false. Hence, whoever of you lives to see this month shall fast throughout it, but he or she that is ill or on a journey shall fast instead for the same number of other days. God wills that you shall have ease and does not will you to suffer hardship. But Allah desires that you complete the number of days required, and that you extol Allah for Allah having guided you aright, and that you render your thanks to Allah. So we see a few things here. First and foremost, this is the month that all of the divine revelations were revealed. They were brought to the lower heavens and then revealed by the various nabis, the various messengers of God, prophets of God, the 5 of them that were given divine revelation. And so we understand that this is the month that all the divine revelations were revealed. It is the month that the Holy Quran came to us. And can we imagine life without it? If you think about your life before the Quran, we are to understand that it is proof, evidence, clarity. Then it's a book wherein there's no doubt. And it is the standard by which we discern true or false. It is the standard with which we use to decide everything that we're going to do in our life. And then we see here that it is mentioned that we extol Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this time for guiding us aright, for putting us on the Siratul Mustaqim, that we extend our thanksgiving, our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, we know that the way that we express our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by serving Allah. And so a few verses before that in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 183, O you have attained to faith, fasting is ordained for you as it was ordained for those before you, so that you might remain conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fasting and all of the efforts that you're doing here in the month of Sha'aban is preparation. It is the precursor. It's the warm up for the marathon. So inshallah, it is my prayer that all of you are taking advantage of this wonderful month of Sha'aban. Now, I made some notes up here. The commercials that probably many of you are seeing on television, unless you have fancy TVs without, or programs without any adverts. Commercials are mostly appealing to your nafs, your desires. Eat this and you'll be cool. Stay alive with Pepsi. Drink this and you'll be cool. Wear this and you'll be cool. You'll be desirable. Play here, play there, and so on. All of them are appealing to the dimensions of the physical self. And so, and the seen world, the dunya, that which we sort of participate with our physical extremities. And so here, what I want you to recognize is this is a special time in the year where we are going to appeal to our ruh, that we want to appeal to the unseen world. And we know that fasting is an unseen act, and that all of the scholars enjoined us to not publicize our fast. Now, obviously, in the month of Ramadan, it's pretty publicized because people know that it's a pillar of Islam. Rarely will you see commercials that are enjoining you to listen to your heart, to listen to your ruh, to be in touch with your fitra. And rarely outside of 501c3s, you don't see many adverts that are saying, just give your money away, be generous, be hospitable, be forgiving, be humble, be modest, be respectful, and moral. So, you know, if anybody hears or ever sees a commercial like that, I would love for you to send it to me, because I would really enjoy being able to see that myself. You're not going to see a commercial from any of the food chains that says, think of your heart, not your stomach. You're not going to see anyone who sells items or events for pleasure that's going to say, think about your soul and not your five senses. And if you don't have ruh, if you don't have that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through your fitra and through that spirit, you cannot understand this and you cannot think this way. And the people that don't have ruh actually don't understand that there's a better way. Now, the fasting of Ramadan actually liberates us from our passions and addictions. So if you think about it, in normal times throughout the year, there are habits, like on the way to work. Obviously, we're in a different season now with COVID-19, but on the way to work, you might stop at your Starbucks or your Dunkin', because America runs on Dunkin', and get coffee and stuff like that. There are habits that we have that are very focused on our physical life. I've just got to have a bagel before I go to work. I've got to have this. I've got to have that. And so what Ramadan comes to let us know is that there's joy beyond the material and the physical world, that there's joy in celebrating your soul. There's joy in being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So during Ramadan, when we abstain voluntarily from those elements, we begin, interestingly enough, not only to talk about kindness and compassion, but actually feel kindness and compassion and materialize it and actualize it more. So the more connected we are to God, the more likely we are to do good deeds with our extremities. What we have inside will be manifested on the outside. And just as an example, if someone in the class were to ask me for water, and I didn't have any water, I couldn't give you water. So unless I have that ruh within me alive and well, I cannot give ruh to you. So we do find that as people are connecting that may not connect very often, inshallah, they're doing more and more good acts. When we voluntarily stop eating from dawn till sunset, and we do that with focus. So what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of lectures is how we participate in the month of Ramadan with focus. How we participate in the month of Ramadan according to the conditions dictated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger regarding the month of Ramadan. If we pray, but we don't pray with the right conditions, if we pray, but we don't pray with khushu', if we pray and we don't pray with concentration, the grade that we get on our prayer will not be good. We may barely pass. That we will be able to say, well, at least I prayed. What we want to do is pray with concentration, and we want to fast with the same level of concentration. They are both pillars of Islam. Now, what's really interesting is that when we fast, we have a home to go to. And this week, I have not left my home except occasionally just to take a drive. Just get in the car, take a drive, and come back. And I encourage you to follow that rule, to stay home, to stay safe, to stay safe, to use this opportunity as a time to worship and get close to your Lord. If you get close to your Lord, you won't be bored. If you get close to your Lord, you won't be bored. But when we fast, if we were on the outside, generally we have a home to go to. And for many of us, we will probably maybe visit at least our family, even though there's a lockdown. We may visit a few people that live very close to us, perhaps, but at least we have those places to go. And there are so many people who are actually fasting on a daily basis, particularly in this particular time on our earth, known as the COVID-19 era. There are people that used to be able to stand on the street corners to get money, and for people to be able to give to. They can no longer stand on the street corners because it's not safe. They can contract the virus by someone who's giving them something, or if they have the virus, someone who's giving them something can contract the virus. So we must pray for those people, inshallah. If we are involved internally with our fast, then we begin to know what it is to be hungry. If I'm just going through the action and I'm not doing tafakkur and tadabbur, I'm not deeply contemplating, deeply reflecting, and deeply pondering on why I'm fasting and what the purpose of the fast is, it will simply be a physical act, an external act with my extremities, but it will not involve the internal. And we know that it is the internal, it is the soul, that which we cannot see, that is going to be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our hunger is by choice. And yet right now, there are so many people whose hunger is by circumstance. And let's please remember to pray for those people. So if we understand what fasting means, it will consequently enable us to develop compassion and care for those in need, for those desperate, for those that are homeless, and for those that are hungry, inshallah. We will not only talk about giving and sharing and loving, but we will, through fasting in this month, inshallah, be moved to the giving of money, to supporting those people who are in need, because, as I often say, thereby by the grace of God go I. So I want to say that fasting is not about celebrating eating, it is about celebrating not eating. So it is the month of abstinence. Ramadan is the month of abstinence, not the month of indulgence. So I want to remind you again that fasting is not about celebrating eating. The beautiful aspects of fasting is not iftar. There's a sweetness to iftar, but it is not that we are celebrating iftar every night. We're celebrating a month of abstinence and a month of gaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ramadan is celebrating an inner dimension of fulfillment and nourishment. What I want you to focus on, instead of focusing on fulfilling your physical needs at sunset, focus all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on fulfilling that inner dimension, on fulfilling the needs of your heart and being nourished. Instead of celebrating the ruh and heart, which are not nourished by physical food, we continue to celebrate food to the extent that many non-Muslim journalists write articles in Ramadan about the types of succulent foods and delicious desserts that we prepare in Muslim homes during the month of Ramadan. And they sometimes even include recipes. That really, and there's nowhere in the Quran or the Sunnah that says our focus in the month of Ramadan should be about what we're eating and that our conversation should be about what we're eating. We are commanded in Surah 2, verses 183 to 185, that our speech should be about extolling Allah and expressing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that is what Ramadan is intended to celebrate, is Allah. And maybe this is why so many people have been fasting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and we don't actually see them benefit from the fasting. We just see them complaining and being hungry. The only benefit we get from fasting in that case, as I said just now, is a 24-hour period of time, or maybe 12 to 15 hours of that 24-hour period of time when we're just hungry and thirsty. May Allah protect us from that. Ramadan is about celebrating Allah consciousness. Again, it's not about eating. Some people live to eat in the month of Ramadan. What we want to do is live to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ramadan is about discovering joy and the pleasure, not in the realm of the physical, but in the realm of the heart and soul, the spiritual realm. So whenever you break your fast for iftar, and at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give some nuts and bolts in case we have anyone fasting for the first time, or just to remind those of us who have been fasting what violates the fast. I'll be covering that at the end of this presentation, inshallah. So whenever you go to break your fast at iftar, what you will see, or what you might have seen if you were in large groups, is people rushing to the food table as if it's a food trough. So what I want to encourage you to do is to approach that table with your hands open to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want you to recite the dua that we'll be sending out to you. Allahumma layka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. And I want you to approach your iftar meal in a prayerful spirit, in a spirit of ruh, in a spirit of extolling Allah for giving you food when there's so many people that do not have food, and giving gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I could ask you guys to mute your microphones, because I'm hearing some background music, or not music, but noise, I'd appreciate that. Sometimes it is more challenging to be forbearing and patient when there is food than when there is no food than when there is food. That is why food is put on the table during Ramadan, and many eat like ravenous animals, because the heart is not involved. So make it an intention now that when I approach food, that's not going to be what I look forward to most in the day. What I'm looking forward to most in the day is extolling Allah and expressing my gratitude to Allah by reading the Quran, which is part of dhikr, and praying and doing good deeds, inshallah. We are taught and instructed to break our fast with really light food. The Prophet ﷺ used to break his fast with a piece of a date, not a whole date. And some of us know that there's authentic hadith that says you should take an odd number of dates, 1, 3, and many people want that 3 dates. I just want to remind you that's okay. It's from the Sunnah. But the Prophet ﷺ used to just have a piece of a date and water, if possible. There were times when that was not even possible. After we satisfy the physical dimension and avoid the spiritual, what's going to happen is we're going to go to Salah really unable to focus because we are so uncomfortable. And I know for me personally, I used to want to make sure I was hydrated. So as soon as the fast broke, I would drink a quart of water. And really, I would feel so bloated and so uncomfortable that when I would bend down into ruku'ah to pray, I would just have a real struggle. I felt like I was actually going to maybe be sick. So learn to calm it down. Remember, you can drink through the night and your body can only process a certain amount of water at the time. So I'd encourage you to think about that. How can our soul benefit from the speech of Allah? So remember, I told you about the online Taraweeh, that you'll be, inshallah. I beg, I plead you, I beseech, I implore you by Allah to participate in this. And so we'll have things to share about that. When we go to do those prayers, if we are full, it will be like taking an exam after you've eaten a huge lunch. You will not be able to do well on the exam. And our mind will be sluggish. And we may even find ourselves sleepy. The nafs are enslaved, and it has enslaved us, causing our mind to sleep. And we come to Salah bored, yawning, and forgive me, burping and belching. Salah is a time of connectedness to the human heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The essence of Salah is the connectedness of one's heart to Allah, and we have to have a pure intention. And to do that and prepare our conditions to pray it with presence of heart and to respect and the respect due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I do encourage you that you really, really focus on this. Try to not get into excitatory states. What happens is that as soon as the nose smells the food, our nafs get excited. And if we don't control it and we don't stay ruh oriented, that excitatory state will suddenly find ourselves, I can't wait to eat, I can't wait to eat. Instead, stay connected to your ruh and say, I can't wait to praise Allah. I can't wait to bow down with those who bow down, and I can't wait to go into sujood with those who go into sujood. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches that the value of the salah of an individual is worth only the extent of the presence of one's heart in that salah. So if you're just standing there not waiting for Taraweeh to be over and you're thinking about what you're going to do when you're getting home, well, you're going to be home. What you're going to eat as soon as you get through with that 1 hour and 40 minutes of prayer, then that's what you're going to get. Men and women get what they strive for. So I would encourage you to keep that in mind. It is through fasting that we discover that there is life, pleasure, and joy outside of physical things, such as eating, sleeping, drinking, copulating, and talking. And in the last class, I talked about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes his servants to remember Allah when most people are not. So we have Salatul Tahajjud, where people are remembering Allah when others are sleeping. When some people will be eating all through the night, we will be praying, inshallah, Salatul Taraweeh, and we will be eating spiritually. And we will be drinking from the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ teaches and watch what food does when we eat excessively or in a way that is not properly balanced. If by necessity, a third for water, a third for air, and a third for food. Ramadan and fasting helps bring that balance if we are focused. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that the devil runs inside the child of Adam as the blood runs inside the veins of the child of Adam. And the early scholars, Imam Ghazali in particular, said that restrain and narrow down the passages of the devil inside the human veins by fasting. So to slow down the excitatory states, we fast. We do not eat a lot of food so that we have a lot of energy for a lot of vanities and frivolities. The scholars recognize that too much food and drink fuels passion. It is interesting, this physical connection, yet the intent of it is in the spiritual world. And we see that we know the shaitan is not an actual physical entity, but his suggestions, and they're only thoughts, and that's all they are. They do not define us. They come from outside of us, and we do not want to think that the shaitan's thoughts are who we are. That is not a part of our personality profile unless we actually obey the thoughts that come from the shaitan. It is beyond that. It can have the ability to transform and to materialize because it is an extraterrestrial being where we are unable to enter each dimension. So there are many dimensions. What we want to do is enter the dimension of spirituality in this month of Ramadan. So Shaitan is only able to enter our outer dimension. He can whisper into our ears. And what I want you to be aware of is that the ears are the avenue to the heart. And that's why you don't want to listen. So when the Shaitan comes very, very slyly like a fox and whispers to you, you know that he is going to withdraw and he's going to come back. So you seek refuge with Allah, you change your thought and you think that the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have you think. If whatever thought comes to you is not what Allah said, then avoid that thinking, inshallah. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also teaches that fasting is a shield. It is a protection. And that is consistent with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 2, 183. O you who have believed, O ye who have attained to faith, O ye who have attained to Iman. Fasting is ordained for you as it was ordained for those before you, so that you might remain conscious of Allah. Carry your tasbih beads. Do whatever you can so that it will help you and aid you to remain conscious of Allah and not your physical world or your physical needs. Fasting was prescribed upon us as it was prescribed for those before us in order that we might obtain taqwa. And we know that taqwa derives from the Arabic word wakayaki, and waka means to protect or shield, and itaka means to protect oneself. So we are trying to shield ourselves from external factors and stimulus, and we are trying to protect our own soul by employing the self-reproaching soul and the awareness, the intellect of the heart, which is the haq that we know. Taqwa is a noun derived from that meaning, which means to shield and protect oneself. And what is it that we need to protect ourselves from? We need to protect ourselves from our passions, from our desires, from the nafs and the impact of the voices, the words, the whispers, and the sayings and the messages that come from the shaitan. To protect the human being from the excesses and indulgence of the self that lead to chain the individual to be addicted to his or her desires instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you remember in the beginning, before I actually started the class, I shared two areas, some from Surah Al-Baqarah and some from Surah 51. I have created jinns and mankind for the one ultimate purpose, that they fulfill ibadah, worship me. So surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fasting frees us and protects us all from the wrath and displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. because we want to seek closeness and nearness to the source of peace. We don't want to be on the journey to do things that will deviate us from that source of peace and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you forget me, if you're not conscious of me, I will not be conscious of you. If you don't remember me, I will not remember you. So displeasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes when we deviate from Allah's law and Allah's path and Allah's ways. And the way we can protect it is by fasting in our heart, fasting in the spiritual realm. So really you want to keep that heart, the eyes of the heart, the ears of the heart focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're going to do that through prayer, dhikr, reading of Quran, inshallah. If I don't shield myself, I am the loser emotionally, morally, intellectually, and physically. So I shield myself from bad, and the consequence for me is joy in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and victory in the life to come. So what are we shielding ourselves from? We are shielding ourselves from our desires, inshallah rabbil alameen. Fasting is an invisible shield, part of the unseen protection around us from those created things. There are people that are going to come up to you if you see people. If some of you are maybe doing telephone work, if you're not exposed or you are exposed to the public right now, and they'll say, I don't know how you could fast in a time like this. You're probably not taking care of yourself. You ought not to fast now. And they're going to tell you all kinds of things to appeal to the physical part of you. So when one is fasting, one is to be focused on one's spiritual energies instead of focusing on one's food energy and one's physical energies. When one focuses on one's spiritual and moral energy, they will be good for them in this life and in the life to come, inshallah. Fasting will give you the spiritual strength to face the challenges of the nafs, the lower desires. This is not where we get physical strength. Many times it is so difficult for me to do good. It is so difficult for me to refrain from harm. And particularly, for example, when someone has hurt us, we have to be very careful when we are hurt, to be careful what we say, because where there is hurt, there is often anger. And where there is anger, there is often sin. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, don't go near to anger. If you're angry, sit down, ponder, reflect on it, contemplate. If that doesn't work, make your lay down. After you've sat down, if that doesn't work, lay down. If that doesn't work, do your wudu. If that doesn't work, pray. Don't go near to anger. And sometimes when we are fasting, particularly beginners that are fasting, you may find yourself irritable, struggling with the fact that you want something, your ego, your nafs want something. I want water, I want food. If you find yourself getting irritable, follow what Allah and His Messenger have commanded you to do. I want to do good, but I just can't. I am taken in this course of not being able to do good. It is easier for me to do wrong. It is easier for me to violate the norms of decency, morality, and goodness. So I need discipline. I need fasting. And so there is no Quran or Hadith to say this, but it is in fact a month of self-discipline. It is a month to discipline the self. I may perhaps be an exceedingly strong person physically. I might be able to lift some heavy weight. I might be like a football player or Mr. Universe in terms of my physical body. And yet I may not be able to control the desire to do harm to my spirit. And so we really want to be spiritual football players. We want to be spiritual Mr. and Miss Universes. We're not as interested in being strong in our physical bodies as we are being strong in the spiritual dimension. If I am weak in that way spiritually, any kind of moral impulse will bring me to my knees because there's no spiritual strength. If I focus on Ramadan, I'll develop spiritual strength. If I apply myself to its principles and I work hard on my heart, I will be more able to do better than before. If I focus, if I prepare my heart in the month of Ramadan, I will be less prone to do wrong. The path to do good becomes easier for me, and this leads me to the next point. How much difference is there in your life in or outside of Ramadan? And for those of you who have fasted in the past, you'll know you will have your fluctuating iman, and you will find that there were days when you had these wonderful feelings, maybe days that you didn't. But what you will find is that you did pray more if you went to the masjid, if you went to Tarawih. So that's why I've given you this online site so we don't have any excuses. One of the things I'm very aware of is what is our spiritual life like when we get in the public, and what is it like in our homes, in the private during COVID-19? So when we're together, are we mashallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, alhamdulillah, praying our sunnahs, and then when we get home and nobody's looking but Allah, we are, well, just praying the fard, not doing any fasting. Perhaps out of our mouth is coming anger toward our family members or toward our spouse, and perhaps maybe we find ourselves on the phone gossiping and slandering and dirtying our soul. So hopefully you will see a difference in your life at this time, a consistency with Salah, with reading the Quran and being compassionate to those around you. So Ramadan should be seen as your very best friend. It should be seen as the guest that arrives every year, the guest that you love more than any other guest, that comes to you because it makes you be good. It's like a good influence on you, a friend that's a good influence. The day Ramadan ends is a terrible type of sadness that always overwhelms me. It's like a loving, generous, kind friend is leaving me, and I know I'm not going to see him or her for a whole year. I always feel a genuine sadness when Ramadan bids farewell. In its presence, I find a happiness not comparable to other times or types of happiness. And that friend helped me to be good, and that friend gave me peace, alhamdulillah. Actually, I find myself always afraid to go back to things as they were, to the outside world. I find myself saying things like, I wish we could have Ramadan all the time. During the month of Ramadan, the devils, those extraterrestrial hyperspace types of beings, are chained. They're shut up. The gates of paradise, the home of peace, I.S.L.A.M, are wide open in this great month. And the gates to the dwelling of misery, violence, and hell are locked up. So think about this, own this, claim this, that this is the safest time of the year. And while I am safe, I am creating my own shield as well, the shield of fasting. And I am free from the shaitan, the major ones, and I am free to worship my Lord. And Allah has made I think it might be 11 million people now that are unemployed, has given them 17 million, the opportunity and the time to really enjoy this holy month of Ramadan. And I know that if we give to Allah in this month, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to us from places that we had no idea about. During the month of Ramadan, Allah's love, compassion, generosity, and mercy is so abundantly optimized. And it affects the whole universe. 2 out of 7 in the world today, out of 8 billion people, are Muslim. And on some level, paradise is nearer to us, the gate is nearer, and the gates of hell are made further away. So Ramadan is a window of opportunity and time open for me to journey into the hyperspace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, not the hyperspace of our nafs, not the hyperspace of, may Allah forgive me, Amazon.com and eBay. Right now, when people don't have a lot to do, their nafs are telling them, oh, all the things I haven't had time to buy because I'm working, let me get online and run up my credit cards so that I can be stressed out, and so I can't enjoy the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, hopefully all of us here today have had times when we really felt close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, perhaps when we were in dua after our salat, or just in general dua, perhaps in I.S.L.A.M or Tarawih, more than before in your supplication. And it is in these moments when believers are in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and their hearts are moved. Their hearts are often moved to tears. Their hearts quiver, the Quran says. And this is indeed a sign of healthy iman. We want our hearts to be moved when we talk about Allah and when we worship Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more generous than you and me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more giving than you and me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives more respite to you and me. And Allah's gates in Ramadan are more open than before. There are moments in time and space, both created by Allah, that Allah assigns a special time and space in which the individual beings can be nearer to the divine. And this month of Ramadan is one of those times. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this to be so. So for example, whenever you're in prostration of Salah, stay there an extended time. Nobody's going to be going, not many people are going to work. So stay there in the prostration. This is a time in which one is the nearest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let it be that when you're in prostration, when you're in sujood, when you're reading Quran, when you're making dua, whenever you're doing dhikr, that time and space don't mean anything. Try to maybe set an alarm so you don't think about what time, whatever time you need to maybe start preparing food or whatever you have to do, set an alarm so that you're not preoccupied looking at your watch every 10 minutes. It is in this month of Ramadan that we try to develop our heart, wherever it is in space and time, to be near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ramadan is the time the devil is chained and the gates of paradise are open to us and the gates of hell are closed. It is like Allah is saying, come, come my servant, come back to me. Allah says that all the time, but Allah makes the divine abundantly available every day in the holy month of Ramadan, in this window of space and time. In the last third of the night, when people are sleeping, Allah is calling to us saying, the door is a little closer now. If you really want to get nearer to me, if you really want to be more conscious, awake from your bed and focus on me, and I will fill your heart fuller, more full than I've ever filled your belly. In Surah 2, verse 183, O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting as it was decreed upon those before you, that you might become righteous. You will not become righteous by watching Netflix and Hulu during the month of Ramadan, unless you're watching Taraweeh or you're watching some program about Islam. The virtue or the value of the human being lies in his or her spiritual reality, how well they develop their soul for what it was meant to be for. Adam A.S.L.A.M was created out of clay, a lump of clay. And prior to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathing into Adam, the divine's ruh, Adam A.S.L.A.M had no value. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed into Adam A.S.L.A.M, the divine's ruh, Allah commanded the angels to lay themselves prostrate to our father Adam. It was the ruh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that made the lifeless clay become an animated object created to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on the divine scale, we will be measured by how much we develop or have that spirit in us. So the ultimate question is, how much ruh is in our moments of silence? How much ruh is in this class? How much ruh is in my intention to present this to you? How much ruh is in our general speech when we call our family, when I call our friends? How much ruh is in our eating and our drinking and our socializing, our recreation, our fasting, our Salah, and our charity? And with the gym being closed, I really missed my stair climbing, because with each stair climbing, I used to do a praise to Allah. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So we have to find other ways to be praising our Lord, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. So I would ask you some questions now before we go into some nuts and bolts that I want to remind you of. According to Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 183, what is the mission statement of fasting? And anyone who would like to answer that question, please do. Don't I have any volunteers? Nobody's going to step up? Okay. Okay, I'm being told that it's muted, but I didn't realize that. So you can unmute yourself if you'd like to participate by answering, but the mission statement for the month of Ramadan is that we obtain God consciousness, that we extol Allah, and that we express our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, this goes into the two things that we're ordered to do. We're ordered to fast, and we're ordered to extol Allah, and express our gratitude. What did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean when he said the value of the salah of an individual is worth only the extent of the presence of one's heart in the salah? Would anybody like to share? So the answer to that question is that we get what we strive for. To the extent that we strive, we will receive the shield, we will be protected, we will become more God consciousness, more conscious of God, we will attain more God consciousness, and our iman will be elevated, and we will stand in awe of Allah when we remember Allah. And what is taqwa? It is worshiping as though you see Allah. And as you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the nuts and bolts for those of you who will be fasting. The 23rd inshallah, will be the first night that I'll offer a class, and that will be the first night of Ramadan. Night comes before the day. And inshallah, that night around 8:45, I plan to give a lecture. And then at 9:20, we will enter into that website, inshallah, to do our Taraweeh. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit more about ruh, and then I want to talk about what invalidates a fast. So ruh is often referred to as spirit or breath of life. It's used in the Quran 21 times, referring to the divine spirit in the sense of communication of life force. Often it is interpreted as an immaterial, immoral element of a living being, as well as the true self or soul apart from the body. Also a designation for I.S.L.A.M and the angel Jibril. So it is often used interchangeably with nafs, the self, and often distinguished by certain scholars. And the ruh is often distinguished as being the higher principle of the soul, as opposed to the nafs, which are often referred to as the lower animal self. We do know from my class on the nafs, though, that the nafs can be elevated to be like Muslim nafs and good nafs. So I struggle a little bit with that definition, but you may hear that. I wanted to share that with you. So there are two types of things that invalidate the fast. And so it basically two categories: that which is coming out of the body and that which goes into the body. So if you'll just think about it. So the things that are coming out of the body, some examples of that would be bodily fluids, ejaculation, vomiting. Now, I want to make very clear, if you just belch and a little food comes up, that's not vomiting. That does not invalidate your fast. So I want you to understand that it also involves things that enter the body, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail. So I want to cover another detail just briefly while I'm thinking about it. There are different schools of thought. Some people stop eating. The Hanafis sometimes stop eating, I think it's 15 minutes before the Adhan of Fajr. The Quran says, it says, Allah has ordained for you and your offspring to eat and not to eat and drink until the white thread, the light of dawn, appears to you distinct from the black thread. So there's no question, this is from the Quran. You can eat right up until dawn comes in, and you'll all have your prayer calendars or your apps to tell you what that is. If you have something in your mouth and the adhan goes off, swallow that within your mouth. That's allowed. There's authentic hadith to prove that. So the things that you cannot do that violate your fast are cupping. So if there are any of you that have cupping done where there's suction on the back and then there's cuts and there's blood withdrawn, that is not allowed when you're fasting. And then I want to share with you the penalty of intercourse. A woman does not get punished, but if a man insists on his wife having intercourse during a day of fasting, there is a huge penalty for that. And that would be that they would fast for 60 days to make it up, and they would feed the poor for 60 days. So I don't think it's worth that, particularly if we're trying to get God conscious and we are trying to give up our desires. Look at what that will cost you. Whenever you're making your wudu, we don't try to see if we can sniff up the water into our nose as far as we can so we can just get a little water. If it goes down the throat, it violates the fasting. and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did address that. Transfusion of blood to one who is fasting invalidates the fast because blood is formed from food and drink. So we don't go out and give blood because that's not healthy. We need our hemoglobin when we're fasting, and we don't go out and take blood. Obviously, if it's a life-threatening situation, you would be considered sick and you wouldn't be fasting. And so that would be an exception. Receiving things via a needle in a vein, if it's nourishing substances, which take the place of food and drink, that would violate your fast. If it is an injection that does not replace food and drink, it is not vitamins, it's not nutrients, but they are being administered for the purposes of medical tests, such as penicillin or insulin, or a vaccination, that does not affect the fast. Whether they are intravenous or intramuscular, it does not matter. To be on the safe side, what I always recommend to people, if you can do any of that, do it either after sunset or before. Allah knows best. Kidney dialysis, in which blood is extracted, cleaned, and then returned to the body with the additions of chemical substances such as sugars and salts, would violate the fast. If you're on kidney dialysis, you should not be fasting anyway. So I want to make sure that you guys know that Allah does not make it difficult for you. You can feed the poor instead. These are often questions that I get asked about, so I wanted to make sure I tried to cover these things. There is an exception to the rule. Let's say that in this global pandemic, if there was a need for blood, then that would not break your fast because life is so valuable in Islam. If you suffer from a nosebleed, that does not invalidate your fast, because it's involuntary. It's not something, if you stick your finger up your nose and you make yourself bleed, then that would be different. So if you had to have a tooth pulled or something like that, chances are you're not going to eat anyway. But the scholars have said with regard to bleeding that results from extraction of a tooth, surgery, or a blood test, that does not invalidate the fast because it is not cupping or something that is similar to cupping, unless it has an effect on the body similar to that of cupping. So I think I'm trying to just quickly think if there's anything else. Obviously, if our sisters begin their menstruation, their fast does not count that day. They would make that fast up. You can listen to Quran, you can read English, but you cannot touch the Arabic Quran if you're missing, or obviously if you're able to read it. I'm just wanting to make sure, I tried to make a little list here to make sure I covered everything. Eye drops and eardrops do not invalidate the fast because they don't go down the throat. So I just want to share that. Even enemas do not violate the fast. So I will warn you that sometimes people fast if they don't drink enough water for dhuhr and iftar, and sometimes, I'm sorry, I should have said suhoor. I think that didn't come out straight. Then they may find themselves getting physically constipated. Enemas are not a violation of the fast. Medical tablets that are placed under your tongue to treat asthma, if we have any asthmatics among us, to treat an asthma attack, are not violating the fast unless you were to swallow the residue. So I think that's pretty much, if you have any specific questions that you want to ask, you can always send me an email and I will answer those separately. I'm often asked the question, can I kiss my husband? Can my husband kiss me? And I'm going to answer as I always do with a hadith. It was confirmed by Aisha, the wife of our beloved Prophet, may Allah be pleased with her, and I.S.L.A.M, would kiss and embrace her while he was fasting, for he had the most control of all of you over his desires. Umar radiallahu anh said, I was excited one time and I kissed my wife while I was fasting. I went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, today I committed a horrendous act. I kissed while I was fasting. The Prophet ﷺ asked, what do you think of rinsing with water while fasting? I said, there is nothing wrong with that. The Prophet said, then what is the question? So if you have control of yourself, you can kiss your wife. I wouldn't recommend heavy kissing because that will lead to desire. But if it is your custom to kiss your wife when you walk by her, or kiss your husband when you walk by him, by all means, it's not haram, it's not makruh, it's not distasteful. And inshallah, it is my prayer that this will benefit you. Please send me some emails at imamsykes@gmail.com if you have any questions. I would really appreciate that. I also want to continue asking you to support the organization. This week, we sent out 6 Qurans despite COVID-19. They went out in post this week. If you would like to donate, $I.S.L.A.M Inc. On Cash App, and you'll see that it says the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims. Under Venmo, you'll find Abdurrahman Sykes, ABDURRAHMAN, my last name Sykes, SYKES. And so please, we ask you, also you can use Cash App. I think I said that maybe before, to continue supporting the organization. Does anybody have any comment they would like to make? And if you do not want to use the voice and make your comment with your own voice, you're welcome to type it to me, and I will be glad to share your question or comment. But I want to welcome 2 guests today before I look to see what you've said. Naran and I met a very lovely couple, Adam and Grace. We were at a restaurant eating and began to talk to them. And so I want to welcome them to our class today. And I'm just so happy that you've joined us. My prayers that Allah will bless your time abundantly, exceedingly abundantly, inshallah. Anyone have a question, comment?
Assalamu alaikum, Imam Sykes. It's Doug and Mika.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Doug, welcome.
Thank you. We want to express our gratitude for your class and this lesson today. It's always great to learn more and more. And also welcome Grace and Adam and everybody else who's on the call. And I also want to just gratefully mention that my brother-in-law Fahim is on all the way from Uganda. So he, and also a great friend of ours, Rasna, who you met at our wedding, and she is joining us from Norway. So
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Welcome. I don't, this week I did not put the board up so that it tells me, and I see that question, I'll answer it, who's on, because it was distracting me, and every time I was looking to see who joined the class, and then it distracted me. I do ask all of you to pray for me. This medium is new to me, it's foreign to me, and I find myself stumbling over words, and I ask you to forgive me for that. I have headphones in, and so there's a bit of a delay in what I'm saying and hearing, and so I have ordered a special speaker and camera so that we can improve the quality of this, inshallah. I ordered it this week, and with everything the way it is, it slowed down. So the question is, what about scheduled meds throughout the day in regards to fasting? So what we try to do is, and most of you may be able to contact your doctor via some kind of social media now, telehealth or something. I am certainly able to contact my doctor. I asked the doctor if it's possible for the meds to be prescribed to me so that I could take them at dawn and at sunset. Typically that's the case. If that's not the case, ask your doctor if there's a way that you can fast, and if your doctor feels that it is safe for you to be fasting. I want to say something. If any of the audience suffers from mental illness, I highly encourage you to not do without your medications, because often that can set you back. You can feed the poor instead. I beg you, if we have any diabetics listening today, unless your doctor says that you can fast, I beg you not to fast. Your life has great value, and you're very important to the community, and we do not want you to risk damaging your physical body in any way, and Allah doesn't want that from you either. So I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please type what I didn't answer. Okay, now the next question is, do we break the fast before or after Maghrib Salah? As soon as your Maghrib comes in, you break the fast with water and dates. Now, some people will do fruit. You can break that fast and you can immediately pray Maghrib and then eat. There is an authentic hadith that says that the food is ready, you can eat and then pray. At this particular time of the year, you will have quite a window. So I actually got this prepared so that I can sort of demonstrate that to you. So I'm really, really glad that that question came in. So for example, on the night of the 24th of April, which would be corresponding to the first day of Ramadan, the Maghrib will come in at 8 o'clock. And then we will have our class at 8:45. So that would give you 45 minutes to pray your Maghrib and to eat your meal, and then to come to the class. Now, of course, the class is not obligatory. I just want to continue, if I can, to edify you, to give you that sense of family, that sense of connection. And so then what would happen is 8:45, I would teach. I would probably wind it up about 9 or 9:05. And that would give you about 10 or 15 minutes to perhaps get some water, to make your wudu if you needed to make it. A lot of times after your Maghrib and you eat and you've been fasting all day, you may need to use the restroom. And then at 9:20, it is my hope that everybody will go to the website that I recommended and pray Taraweeh. You'll just simply follow the imam there. As you go, know that if it's your intention to do something and you suddenly find yourself there and you don't know what to do or what you're doing, Allah will accept your intention. Just don't give up, just do it. Send me an email. I will be checking my emails, if Allah wills, inshallah, every single day. I will answer your questions. I love you all for the sake of Allah. And I want this to be the very best Ramadan that you have ever had in your entire life. I'll go back. Somebody asked me again to give the Taraweeh website again. So just bear with me. Let me go back to my notes. And where I have that, alhamdulillah, it is, I'm going to spell it just so we all make sure it's right. TARAWEEHONLINE.com. So taraweehonline.com. and it is a day-by-day completion. You'll go to the website. It'll look like a calendar. And on the 23rd, you'll hit day 1. On the 24th, day 2, and so on and so forth. So what I want you to understand is that is the projection that I gave you. If I should hear of a sighting or a different time, I will immediately send out an email to all of you to contact you. So we will obviously try our very best to send out that email to you based on when we hear of a sighting, or if we hear something contrary to the calculation, I'll let you know. But I would encourage you to get your food ready now. Do not wait. Get the stuff in the freezer that you need. Maybe do a meal plan, particularly since we're going to be home. And I would encourage you to do easy stuff. Remember that the Prophet ﷺ, it was very simple. Make it about worshiping, not about slaving in the kitchen. So we've given you the website, and then somebody's saying As.C.L.A.M and Jazakallah khair. If there's any more questions, please type them for me or say them. If anybody wants to share anything, please feel free.
Oh, this is Julie from the Tate family. You answered the question I was going to ask. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss the 8 o'clock. Maybe you'll re-announce it when you're going to, the prayer and the halakha after we break fast. You'll re-announce the timing.
Yes, I'll do that every night. And remember, Julie, you'll be able to ask me questions. So if I do forget something, just type the question once we're on.
Okay.
And it's so wonderful. By the way, everybody, James had his 56th birthday this week. Happy birthday, James.
Oh, you got outed. Thank you.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. So, and thank you, Nurizam, for your Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you and reward your family and all of you. Thank you, Lisa, so much for your message. I love you all for the sake of Allah. And please, if there's anything I can do for you in this time, if anyone in the family has need, please, I beg you to let us know. We have some zakat money. I beg you, I plead, if you need money for food or anything in the month of Ramadan, I ask you to please let me know about that. And Rasna, it's so good that you're with us, mashallah. And Nurizam, alhamdulillah, it just means so much to have this medium that we can stay connected. It's so important for believers to stay connected. And again, I pray that this you'll give me feedback about the nightly lectures that we do beginning on the first Eve of Ramadan. If you think they're too long, let me know. If you want them to be a little longer, as long as we are finished before Isha. If there's nothing else, I'm going to end the meeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.